I've been scammed by individuals and by companies, and I'm starting to really be aware of the stages and the red flags. And I don't just mean the Nigerian kind of scams or the get-rich-quick scams. I mean even choosing a marketing firm that ends up being something you overpaid for, that you feel swindled by. I mean choosing to work at a marketing firm that misrepresented themselves and ended up being different than how they professed and asserted themselves and how they marketed themselves. False marketing. And so I mean even saving yourself money and time from things that they may not be like outright scam type of people. Like they're not con artists per se, but they're unconsciously misrepresenting and mischaracterizing themselves in a way that is hiding behind big talk and no action or slow action or just conning you for your time and money. And so the very first thing that I noticed that all of these things have in common is that in the very, very first meeting, it's not a two-sided conversation. The scammer is all about them. It's a brag session. It's all about trying to impress you with their story, with what they can do. But it's very key to notice this. It's very vague though. It's very grandiose. It's very impressionistic. It's not exactly like a concrete brag session, but it gives you this idea that they will really help you, but in a way that's almost selling a fantasy, selling a dream, or just kind of selling themselves in a vague-ass, broad way that's too broad. And in that brag session, there's not an ounce of curiosity about you. It's mostly about them. And so that's the first sign I notice. Whether this is a job interview, whether this is a date, whether this is a discovery call with a marketing firm or a discovery call with a coach, they are trying to impress you, and that reveals the role they want you to play, which is, please reflect my idealized image back to me. That's the relationship I want. I want you to boost me up. And then that brings us to our second sign. They are egocentric about being egoless. Now, whenever somebody is very grandiose about their humility, whenever they are bragging about how they're humble and have no ego, you know that they are the most arrogant. They have the biggest ego because they're unconscious of it and disowning it, so it's going to come out in an even more magnified, distorted way because they're trying to tell themselves that they're so virtuous and not having an ego. They're egocentric about egoless because you can't escape the ego. You can't escape that human side. The best thing to do is be aware of it, but if you're unaware of it, then you're having it come out. It's coming out in the false humility. And then acting superior for this false humility. So that's it's so interesting that across the board, different scammers all had this kind of egocentric about being egoless, but were massive egos. And another stage is that they keep things very vague, and that when you ask for clarity, they get defensive. So in terms of like a scammer operates under that false, fragile ego. And so they really want you to just go along with their view of, or their plan. They don't have the ability to kind of see that if you're asking a question or trying to get clarity, that might be not a threat, that to their control. But see, they're so insecure, and they're not able to just realize that it's natural for people to have questions, but they really have this idea that you've got to mirror back their idealized self and go along with that story. So if you try to get clarity, because they're operating in lies, they feel attacked. So for instance, say a marketing firm is claiming that they optimize their blogs with SEO. And you ask the question, well, I have optimized this blog for SEO, and then your edits have made the blog no longer incorporate those SEO keywords and the SEO practices, and so your edits actually made this blog, not optimized. Okay, they view that's just you're trying to bring up a logistical thing, which is, hey, you claim you're SEO optimized. I wrote a blog that's SEO optimized, and actually your edits made it no longer optimized because you've edited it in such a way that it's no longer right. And they actually take that as an attack, like a threat, because they actually don't understand SEO. They're having big talk to pretend they do, and now you're shining a light on that, and that makes them feel insecure and obsolete. And so rather than having the humility and the lack of ego to maybe consider what you're saying with a sense of open mind and non-rigidity, they instead they act as though, they act as though, you just have to edit the blogs their way, and they just don't even, it's like a tyrannical wall goes up. Okay, that's a sign of a person who is a scammer, because they operate they would just want to have the mask of knowing certain things, but they don't want to ever reveal that they don't know something. They don't want to reveal that they're throwing buzzwords around just to seem like they know, but then when it comes down to it, they don't know. It's a slippery situation, because they don't know what they don't know, and when you try to tell them, it's basically they think, well, you either pander to my distortion or you're out. Which brings us to the next stage. You catering to them actually makes things worse. And why is this? Because you think, well, you know what? I'm going to be an easygoing person and go along with the scammer. So I'm going to try to get along, because often you're in a sunk cost fallacy where you've already maybe given them money or time, so you are invested in trying to people please to their current view of reality. So you're trying to people please, pander, cater, but actually you're enabling their dysfunction, and that's causing more problems. And as those problems come up, then you're going to be the scapegoat, because you're going to be the person that's blamed. So if you're catering to their SEO blogs, for instance, or if you're catering to them flaking out on a coaching session even when you've prepaid, and you're thinking, well, if I just kind of act nice, maybe they will step in line, or maybe they will give me clarity, or maybe they will, maybe things will work out, or maybe I'll just avoid conflict. It makes it worse, because those problems from the lies are still going to come up. But then you will be the person blamed for them. So by doing the people pleasing, it just enables dysfunction. So it seems like a good course of action, but it always ends up being, they will deflect responsibility, and then it'll be back on you. And so watch out. Like, the best way to get out of a scammer, get away from a scammer, is to not prepay, which brings us to another stage. They are always keen on getting you to prepay on vague terms, and they will constantly set up an idea that whenever you challenge them, that's wrong. So for instance, say you're thinking about signing on as a client, a marketing firm, and they said that one of the collaterals they're going to deliver is a 12-month marketing plan. And say you ask, can I see an example of what that is? I'm curious, and this is before you've paid. And say that marketing firm thinks, oh, they take it as an affront and defensiveness, like, no, they're mad about giving you a sample of something they're offering. They want you to just go along with the exaggerated kind of sales pitch wording. They want you to just trust them blindly and follow them anywhere, and just in an unrealistic way, because people usually want to, before they pay, they want to know what they're paying for. But say they kind of have a reaction of, how dare you ask questions? How dare you ask for clarity? They want you to prepay and then they'll answer. That is a total scammer. Wanting you to prepay a lot up front is a scam. So you've got to avoid prepaying. Ask questions. Vet thoroughly. Here's a great question to ask. Ask them what their greatest weakness is. Because a truly humble person can answer that. They won't say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Come on, that's been a shtick that's been old. It was in 90s interview books as an answer, so we're all past that now. And then the other thing is asking them, okay, you have a lot of strengths. What would you say your best strength is? Okay, a scammer will just they are so grandiose, they just can't answer what their best strength is because they want to claim them all and they're attached to an idealized image. So there are a lot of signs of scams, but these are, I think, when you're evaluating a company to work for, a company that you want to do your marketing, when you're evaluating a coach you're thinking about working with, a therapist you're thinking about working with, these are things to really watch out for. I'd say these play out in these stages and it's really good to know. So hope this was helpful.